Welcome back to another episode of the Bear Trap, a Bears podcast by a Bears fan. I'm your host, Terry, and today doing another player spotlight, this time on Prince Amukamara, cornerback. Shout out to one of the commenters, I believe it was Jay Dolo, that suggested Prince because I wasn't really even thinking about doing a spotlight on him, to be honest. So shout out to him for suggesting that, even though he was talking trash to me at one point. But it's all good. We Bears fans. I know how it is. But anyway, before we get started, check out the description page for the Patreon. If you want to consider supporting the channel financially, go ahead and check that out. And then also, as I mentioned earlier, we're all Bears fans. So, hopefully we can agree or disagree respectfully. All right, so getting the stats out the way with Prince. Last year he had one game missed, and then he had 3 interceptions and 2 forced fumbles and 12 pass deflections. So 3 picks, was tied for 17th in the league, I believe, amongst the league for interceptions. And there's some other stats that I would be interested in, but I'm not a big stats person, as I said before. And frankly, I don't really trust none of these stat places that do it right now. I know everybody lives and die by PPF or PFF or whatever they are. But honestly, no, not really. I've seen the guys that work for them. I don't trust them, to be honest. I don't think they know enough football. So anyway, I don't really live and breathe by those stats. But it'd be interesting to know kind of, yards against. Kind of like a defense, just, receiving yards against. I wish the NFL tracked that. I would like them to track these stats in official capacity. But anyway, so Prince, so that's kind of what he did last year for us. I went into last year in the offseason talking about him and Fuller. I understood how well he played, and I wondered if he could sustain or get better after he got his contract. And obviously he proved that he took it up a level, which was nice. And then Prince, I was worried about our corners, period, because both of them, they're not speedsters. And even though Kyle Fuller had a good year, he's not a speedster. That's not what he is. And so Prince even less so. And so watching him since he came out of Nebraska, his game is more physical press. And so I was worried. I was wondering, if we would be vulnerable against the vertical pass. Now, to be fair, that was before we got Khalil Mack. And so once we got Khalil Mack, and I've talked about this before, that changed a lot of the pieces, because good pass rush could make up for bad coverage. Good coverage could make up for bad pass rush. But I don't think we were bad in coverage at all, even without Khalil Mack. I think the opposite. As I pointed out, watching all our sacks, I think our coverage gave our pass rush the ability to get there when Khalil Mack wasn't there. And so now, is that a big part due to Prince? I don't know. I think that's a bigger part due to our linebackers. But Prince held his own. And he wasn't a liability per se. But you watch the film, and yeah, he's not, the toughest man corner as far as his sticky coverage. He's going to give up some passes. And so that's kind of what it is. And he could make some plays. He could make it difficult. He could be solid on his assignments. But I don't think he's like, any top flight corner. I don't think he's ever been. And so for me, a lot of people have been talking about, weakest link. Now, just because there's a weakest link doesn't mean the chain isn't strong, And so if you wanted to point out the least talented starter, then Prince might be my bet. And I have to see the depth chart, but, we could pretty much figure out who's going to be returning as starter. And I don't know so much about Clinton Dix, but I would probably go with Prince if you wanted to just talk about who's the least talented of our starters. But that's the thing. As I always say, talent's got to meet scheme for most of these players. In the scheme that we ran last year, where, was a little bit of cover 2, a lot of quarters, good amount of cover 3. he was effective. Him and Kyle, similar. They can play off the ball and get a head start, against more speedy people or, deep coverage. And that allows them to be effective, but they're still active, on the underneath stuff. And then when you play a quarters coverage or you got a cover two, you got Eddie Jackson and Amos that were able to allow them to be a little bit more of a gambler. And so it just worked out nicely. And now you got Eddie Jackson returning, of course. But then you got Clint Dix. And from what I understand, his injury is not significant. So I would assume he's going to be starter week 1. And the one thing I do think, I haven't talked a whole bunch about the Amos Clint Dix thing, but the one thing I do think is that we will probably play a lot more cover 2 and quarters. I don't know what Pagano likes to run. I would think if Fangio was coming back, that's what he would want to do. Just because Clint Dix isn't a great run defender either. I mean, yeah, no. I mean, he can do his job, but he's been trucked by plenty of people. So I think having them over the top helps even more because you got 2 guys with more like free safety tendencies. But at the same time, I worry about Prince on the island. And so that kind of scares me. Especially when you get a team with 2 good receivers. I mean, because A, we don't travel our corners. They stay on their side. And B, when Kyle Fuller isn't, tangled up with a primary, Prince is. And so that kind of worries me, to be honest. But I think we played a lot of coverage last year. Like, if you watch it, we don't blitz a lot. We kind of max coverage a lot of times. I don't think Pagano is going to be the same way. He might play more coverage than he has before, but I don't think he'll play as much as Fangio did. And so there's going to be, I think, more games at the line, and that's going to involve, more safety, more linebacker play, which means there's less help for the corners. And so it's particularly on inside routes. I worry about that, especially in this league. The league is all about attacking the middle. And so I wonder about using our linebackers too much, the slants. That's just like in my mind right now. I'm just picturing Devontae Adams on a slant against a Prince on a blitz, where Roquan or someone's not there. Ugh, just sucks. But that's the stuff I worry about. So, yeah, I think he's good enough to function within the system and to be a viable starter. But I do think we could stand to upgrade that point. And so if we were to have like a young athletic corner, even if they're raw, just an athletic corner, like I think about, just throwing it out there, if we had Greedy Williams over there this year, oh man, just think about how different we would look. So, but anyway, yeah, I think going into the season, like I said, I would label him as a starter. Behind him, I don't know that we have any guys with enough experience to take him out of that spot. But I mean, I think guys are going to get their shot. And honestly, again, when you got Eddie Jackson, we'll see how good Clint Dix is. But then you got Full on the other side, and you got Roquan and Trevathan. Being that last corner really doesn't, I wouldn't say it doesn't matter, but it's not the same type of pressure. You don't get the same type of looks. So you could have a young athletic guy in there kind of go and take his growing pains. So I know a lot of people like Kevin Tolliver for his spot duty last year. And I think Fangio and them did a good job with him. I don't know what the new staff's going to do with him, if he's going to continue to progress, because he was terrible in college. And so, and most D-backs are. So, really growing into an NFL D-back. I think, he'll be serviceable if you were to have Tolliver go in for Prince. So, I don't know. I label him as a starter, but he's replaceable to me, to be honest. So, anyway, go down in the comment section. Let me know what you think about Prince. Share it around. Get the conversation started. Thumbs up. Subscribe. Check out the Patreon, and remember, stay up and bear down.